Good evening and welcome to the March 2nd City Council meeting. If you join me for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Mr. Snyder, roll call, please.
Volk.
Here.
Hellier.
Here.
Bermel.
Here.
Walter.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Okay, we'll move to item 3, citizens' comments. Opportunity for those to address the council for up to 3 minutes. Seeing none. Moving on to additional agenda information, Mr. Miller.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay. We will now go into our first presentation from our Parks and Rec Director, Joe Macy-Archin, for a quarterly report. We were remarking, we thought you just gave that last week, but that was a different presentation.
I'll make this one a little different for you tonight.
Okay.
So, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the quarterly report for the Parks and Recreation Department, so our December through February. And starting off with some updates on administration. And we'll start with a real quick update on our 5-year strategic plan. And again, this is the strategic plan that we adopted last year for recreation and heritage. It's been a busy year for us, actually quite a few accomplishments, and we'll hit some for heritage here coming up later in the presentation. But staff over the last few months visited several other communities. We like to do that to visit facilities to look at the way that they operate, kind of borrow ideas and share information. So really good time kind of looking at those facilities in Plymouth, Maple Grove, and Edina. And we also completed our first full year's worth of surveys for the recreation programs. And that included all recreation programs as well as instructors for those programs. Some really good feedback on that in general. I would say some very high remarks, but also some really great comments and suggestions. That's one of the other things we always look for in those surveys. So a really useful process for us. We did talk about Park System Master Plan, so I will not spend a lot of time on this at the last meeting. The thing I wanted to mention is that our first open house is coming up on March 4th. That's this Wednesday. That'll be here in the council chambers with staff and our consultant, running from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. And this is another opportunity for the public to come and participate in the process, learn more about where we are in the planning process, and to provide additional feedback. So March 4th, here in the council chambers. Lake Marion Greenway Trail continues to move forward. In fact, the site preparation work has now been completed over at Ritter Farm Park and down through downtown. The swipe map is available now on our website. The reason I bring up the swipe map for residents that are curious about the project itself, maybe individual portions of the trail throughout the route, it's a great way to be able to zoom in on individual segments of the trail, and you can swipe between the project as it stands today and what the proposals or the plans are. So make sure to check out our website, parksandrecreation.com, Lakeville, parksandrecreation.com, for more information on that. But that'll be going out to bid here in the next few weeks, and we anticipate construction for that project will be starting after July 1st. That's when our grant funding kicks in. And East Community Park, this is the last major project tied to the 2021 Park Bond Referendum. That is also moving forward in the planning process. That will also be going out to bid here in the next few weeks. And that project includes new parking lots, a new dog park, quite a few new improvements and access points to East Lake, as well as a new year-round restroom facility and shelter. And our first community garden, almost forgot that. So we're quite excited about that. That's included in the project, but that'll be constructed here this summer. We would anticipate that that portion of the park will fully open in 2027. Moving on to park maintenance, quite a few winter duties that they take care of for us over the winter, including rink flooding, snow removal on streets, trails, parking lots, tree trimming, and then always, as time allows, building repairs, painting, and quite a few other projects. But they've had quite a busy winter this year. And outdoor rinks, we had quite a successful season this year. Again, that starts for us with a 24-hour-a-day flooding process with 7 staff members doing overnight work. The operation of those 10 facilities, though, are handed to 52 seasonal staff members that Parks and Recreation oversees. And again, 10 rink sites, 20 rinks in total. But we had, like I said, quite a successful season. I would say one of the best that we've had in recent years. The facilities were really open December 20th through February 16th, with one short portion in the season where we closed because it was too cold. And as far as like staffing updates for parks maintenance goes, we have a seasonal position or an annual position. It's our assistant to the lead position that we use for additional leadership and training opportunities for the maintenance staff. And Jason Rochelle just completed his 1-year tenure in that, and we just brought on Brent Coomer, who was promoted to that position February 1st. So we want to thank Jason for his time and efforts over the last year and welcome Brent into the new role. We also just completed interviews on the new position, which is the Park Maintenance 2 position that was added this year, and that's been now out and offered, and that potential employee is working through the onboarding process. So more announcements on that to come soon. And moving into recreation. Recreation holds quite a few special events over the winter. That includes the Santa Secret Store, which is held at the Heritage Center. And at that event, kids come and work with a volunteer to shop for family members. This year we had 150 participants at that event. We also held the Illumination Walk with 365 participants that did the nighttime walk at Ritter Farm Park, as well as the Youth Ice Fishing Contest with over 100 participants this year. And we did want to spotlight some new programming coming up specifically tied to e-bikes or bicycling in Lakeville, and a new partnership that we have with Downtown Bicycles. Our first program with that was held here in February with 14 participants who did an e-bike class, but we've got a new one that's coming up here. It's an e-bike safety and etiquette workshop, as well as a bike maintenance clinic. We're excited about those. There's actually quite a few new classes that are coming this summer through Parks and Recreation, but we specifically wanted to highlight this one with Downtown Bicycles and appreciate their partnership with us. And for rentals, so we opened up rentals for Lakeville residents to rent facilities within the park system, including our indoor facilities and the shelters. That opened up on January 2nd at midnight. And between midnight and 8 a.m., we had 51 reservations, a lot of overnight reservations to get those high priority days. As we sit right now, we're sitting at around 170 reservations, 57 reservations for the John Hennon Pavilion. And if you're looking for JHP for a Saturday or Sunday in June, you have already missed the boat. There are a lot of great facilities, though, available within the system, a lot of great shelters still available. So make sure to touch base with the recreation staff. They can help direct you to a location that could still fit your needs. And for summer recreation programming, that opened up on February 12th. We currently have 305 registrations. That's about 196 unique individuals who reserved or registered for classes. Top picks for those classes, though, for recreation include pickleball, golf, rev sports, and the new STEM camps. And for upcoming events, we've got the Easter Egg Scramble coming up on March 21st, the Golden Egg Hunt on March 28th, and the Puppinwagen Series, which is on June 15th. We just received another year's worth of sponsorships through Lakeville Lions for that, so we do want to thank the Lions. They pay for that series for us that runs all summer long, and want to thank them. And moving on to Heritage. So the Heritage Center also held quite a few events over the winter. Two notable ones that I do want to mention would be the Holiday Craft and Bake Sale, which is held during Santa Secret Store. All of the proceeds from that go to support the active adult programming, as well as the Holiday Social this year that had 160 participants at it, and that includes a luncheon and live entertainment. And based on some of the priorities that were set out of the strategic plan, the Heritage Center has been working on updated marketing, new logo, new newsletter. So some of that is now starting to roll out. You can see the new logo, top corner of the Heritage Happenings there for the center. But some exciting new things that are being implemented there. We also want to reference the new ADA compliant newsletter. Our newsletter had been really similar for 10, 15 years, so this was kind of a major change for them. This was the first version that went out. There's obviously going to be some tweaks based on feedback, but overall we're quite pleased with the way that publication has come together. And for memberships, we're sitting currently at 1,680 total members. A little over 1,000 of those are female, a little over 600 are male, and we're at a little over 800 resident households and a little over 245, or exactly 245 non-resident households. And upcoming events for the Heritage Center include the St. Patrick's Day Luncheon, March 17th, the Puzzle Palooza, March 27th. Their open house is coming up on April 28th, and then the Sounds of Spring Showcase on May 12th. More information for all of those are also available on the Heritage Center website. And finally, doing an update on the Art Center. So we recently received the new gas kiln that is being installed over at the Art Center. We've talked about this in some of our previous updates, but that has now been delivered. And that is being utilized to expand the curriculum for our pottery programs and also to help handle the growth in the programming over at that facility. That was delivered in January, but we want to thank again Minnesota Energy Resources for their $10,000 grant and the Friends of the Lakeville Area Art Center for a $22,000 donation as well. Without them, we would not have been able to purchase that piece of equipment. Expressions Community Theater holds an annual holiday production. This year it was a Hunting Shack Christmas. And this one was notable because it was their second highest grossing production, so really well attended. Ticket sales were great, but we added performances to accommodate requests. And that show is written by a Minnesota playwright, so it was nice to be able to work with somebody local on that show. And for summer programs at the Art Center, summer registrations really have started out strong. We're sitting at around 146 new spots, or new available spots that were added to this year's available sessions. And no surprise, again, the theater camps are doing quite well, sitting at 50% capacity already with 181 registrants. And there's some new programs. One we wanted to call out, which is K-Pop Demon Hunters. That's one that's being held this year. If you have kids, you probably know it, but sitting at 75% capacity already. And the Art Center did recently, over the last few months, roll out a new membership program. They did that in conjunction with the Friends of the Art Center, and that program now is sitting at around 70 members. It's an annual membership, and through that you receive early access to register for classes and programs, and then also access to exhibits, as well as a 15% discount on ticket sales. We anticipated when the summer brochure rolled out that we were going to see a little bit of a boost in the membership sales, and we did, because members, again, get early access to registrations. And for some of those classes, especially pottery camps where maybe you only have 10 participants per session, we know that people want access to those early, and this was kind of a nice way for people to be able to do that. And upcoming events at the Art Center include the Youth Art Month exhibit, which runs February 27th through March 20th. That exhibit opening is actually tonight, running through 7 o'clock p.m. So if you're here, you've got 45 minutes to get there. Otherwise, the pub night is coming up here with Rob Meany on March 4th, and we've got the art crawl coming up on May 9th. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions, comments? Yeah, Joshua.
Thank you, Mr. Messiarchin. Always a pleasure to hear the update. I had a question. In the consent agenda item, we have porta potties being contracted out for this summer with a couple new additions. It's very exciting. Ritter Farm, I think, is getting a new one. But I had a question about, in terms of making sure those are clean throughout the summer. I know this is not part of the update, but it's somewhat related. How frequently do those get refreshed, and if there are problems, where do folks?
Yeah, so those are contracted out, and some of those have been in the system for years. Some of those are out year-round. So we do work with our contractor as we receive comments back on those, and we do receive comments. But the cleaning schedule is to some extent based on the location. Some of them are used far more frequently than others. So we try to base that cleaning schedule off of high priority use. So when we know that there's events or programs or leagues that are using them, but also as the residents have comments, we do appreciate getting those. There are points where maybe a new portable has been added, and sometimes those do get missed in the cleaning schedule, and we do rely on residents to help us keep track of that as well. So by all means, call us, call central maintenance so we can get those taken care of. So,
Very good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the update.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6, our consent agenda. These are more routine items for the council. Anything you want to highlight, Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple. 6C is a resolution granting contract authority and pledging funding for freight rail car storage facility. Just wanted to call this out as another step that we're getting closer to the rail agreement or the rail storage issue. And thank you to our state legislators for getting this money funded several years ago now. Item 6G is a contract with our sergeants group. That's a new 2-year agreement for that collective bargaining group. And then item 6L is a resolution accepting donations to the Parks and Recreation Department. Mr. Matsiarchin mentioned the $22,000 from the Friends of the Arts Center, and then in total the donations this quarter were $40,000.
Fantastic. Council, anything you'd like to discuss further? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I did want to make just one more comment. I know we've probably stated this before, but item 6H is approving the agreement for the new playground at Lakeville Area Arts Center. And I think it's worth mentioning again that that is in part due to a $90,000 contribution from QA1. So I just want to thank them again for being able to contribute that for that playground.
Thanks for highlighting that.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. We'll move on to item 7, a hearing for high-cost tree abatement. And we'll turn it over to our Community Development Director, Ms. Goodroad, for the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. City staff is pursuing removal of a nuisance cottonwood tree. It's on private property at 6729 175th Street. The tree is dead, leaning over the sidewalk and street. Our staff has been working with the property owner about this removal. There's a couple sections within the city code that allow us to abate when we have a public nuisance such as this. Those are cited in the staff report. In particular, section 4-1-8 requires a hearing for abatements that exceed over $3,000. So staff has received a cost estimate for the tree removal, which is over $3,000. And so we have to go through a process with council approval of a resolution in order to go through that abatement. The property owner has received notices. They have worked with staff, are in agreement with this action, and will willingly sign a right of entry. The removal costs will be certified to the owner's taxes for a period of 5 years. And so the action we're looking for tonight is approval of the resolution after a hearing. It's not a public hearing, but just an opportunity if the property owner is present or anybody representing the property owner would like to speak. Otherwise, approval of the resolution would be the next step.
Thank you. And just to confirm, I think that was an ordinance change when we did the nuisance tree ordinance a couple of years ago. So this is kind of a newer process for us. Okay. So is there somebody representing the property that want to speak? If not, that's totally fine. Okay, not seeing anyone. Is there a motion?
I have a question.
Yes.
So my question is, everything keeps getting more and more expensive. Is it something that we have to look at the ordinance to see if we need to raise it up, or I'm just really curious what the cost of tree removal is coming out to be.
It's a good question. Commissioner Volk, are you questioning the abatement, that raising that $3,000 threshold?
Yes.
Oh, we could consider it. You know, sometimes you put those dollar amounts in an ordinance, it becomes a little bit arbitrary. But we could take a look at that when we do our annual zoning updates.
Yeah, I just, my thought is that if we're already over the threshold for one tree, how often are we gonna keep at this, so.
Okay, certainly.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve a resolution authorizing an abatement for nuisance tree removal at 6729 175th Street.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Lee,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Bermal,
Aye.
Hellier,
Aye.
Volt.
Aye.
Backwards.
Move on to any unfinished business. I don't believe we have any. And then now into our new business. And for those joining here and on YouTube and other places, this new business has kind of been a test replacement for our work sessions, which were typically held on the fourth Monday of the month. We're trying to see if we can be more efficient with everybody's time by doing them after a meeting. So the first item we'll take up is our 2026 bond issuance, street reconstruction, utility CIP projects. And I believe our finance director is going to tee this up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We are getting ready for our April bond sale. The largest portion, the total bond issuance is roughly $39 million. The largest portion is the CIP portion, which is for the Fire Station 2, and that's roughly $29 million par. Then we've got a street reconstruction portion of roughly $5 million, and then a utility portion of $5.3 million. So we've structured these. We've gone over estimated project costs. Some of the bids have been received on some of the projects, but there's not bid openings like on the fire station till May, and but we've got time here too, because this won't be the last bond issuance for our fire station improvements that are going to be happening. So just saying that to let you know, we're structuring this as best we can, and it's not the last hurrah of the ball game with the fires, the CIP portions. So with that, I've laid out just the estimated debt service levies in the council memo, and just giving you a foreground with that, and showing also the park referendum bonds and how those levies are shaped up for the rest of those years on the bond referendum. And so just with that, I'm going to open it up to Jess Green, who's a managing director at Northland, our municipal advisors. So Jess would come to.
Nice to see you again, Ms. Green. Welcome.
Members of the council, good evening. Not a whole lot to add from what Julie just went over, but I will go through the executive summary that's included in your finance plan that is in your packet this evening. And this is found on page 2 of your finance plan. So as Julie just went over, we have a par amount $39,505,000 in proposed general obligation bonds. This would be considered Series 2026A for the city, and financing a number of different activities here. So we've got the street reconstruction and collector rehab. We also have some utility improvements associated with 215th Street, and then of course the CIP portion for Fire Station number 2. The bonds will be considered general obligations of the city, and the city will pledge the net revenues from the water and the sewer utility funds, as well as ad valorem taxes. The ad valorem taxes portion will be reduced by any amounts that are specially assessed to those benefiting properties associated with the street reconstruction portion of the bonds. And then also for the CIP portion, it's worth noting, of course, that the city, while that general obligation pledge will exist for the bonds, that the city does anticipate eliminating that levy with the franchise fee revenue that is available to the city. Repayment term here, the bonds will mature annually each February 1st in the years 2027 through 2047. The street reconstruction and collector rehab, as well as the utility improvements for the bonds, those are structured over 10 years, and it's that Fire Station number 2, the CIP portion, that is structured over a 20-year term. True interest cost here, 3.67% is estimated currently based on a AAA rating. We do have a cushion in here, about 25 basis points just for planning purposes. And then you do have a prepayment option beginning February 1 of 2034. You can call those bonds in whole or in part. We will be, of course, seeking a rating for the bonds. As mentioned, the scale of the bonds currently is estimated based off of those AAA rates, so we'll, again, go through that rating process with Moody's. And then the bonds will be considered tax-exempt, non-bank qualified obligations, being that the city is issuing in excess of $10 million during the calendar year. Risk factors associated with the debt are listed in your finance plan. You can find those in attachment 5. And then the type of bond sale here being a public sale. So we are proposing that the bonds would be issued on April 20th at 10 a.m. So we would take bids that morning on behalf of the city, and then we'd come back before you that evening with the results of the sale. So Mayor, as you went over, not looking for any specific approval this evening, really just any sort of direction that the council may have as we proceed with planning for the issuance of bonds. But other than that, you'll have a resolution that comes before you at your next meeting on the 16th, and that'll officially set the sale for the bonds. And then, as mentioned, we'll proceed with the sale date on April 20th.
Okay, very good. Council, any questions? Joshua?
A couple of comments and then a couple of clarifying questions. Just pointing out, just to say out loud, that the estimated interest cost for this is 3.67, which
Correct.
seems to be, it's no longer the 1% interest rates we once enjoyed, but still a very good rate there. And thank you for calling out the fact that the franchise fees, which essentially are being prepaid already, are only going towards the fire station bonds, not towards anything else.
Correct.
And just to make sure that that's a clarifying point, that folks don't think they're paying for one thing and it's getting applied in other places. So I saw that in there. I know we have a debt policy for having 50% paid off in 10 years if it's a 20-year bond. Is that policy true for a 10-year bond as well? In 5 years, is 50% also?
So the way that your debt policy reads, as you mentioned, is that 50% of the debt would be repaid within the term of the bond. So in these individual portions, making sure that those are retired as planned.
Right. And then the last one, just a definition of not bank qualified.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. Yep. So this really applies more so to smaller issuers. So Lakeville typically is issuing more than $10 million in a calendar year. So bank qualified is a term that applies to bonds that are issued less than $10 million in a year. And what that means is that banks are given, or that the interest rate is slightly less. Now, I will say that for bonds that are less than 10 years in term, it's really not much of a difference at all. And in fact, inside of 8 years, there's really no change from a bank qualified to a non-bank qualified issuance. But it's really more of an incentive for banks to be involved in the municipal market. But again, it's more impactful for smaller issuers.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank
We
you
look
very
forward
much.
to the sale. All right, we'll now move on to item B, Expo 2031. And I don't know if Mr. Miller, you were going to tee this up for us, and then we'll have a presentation.
I will tee it up as much as to introduce Wendy Meadley.
Okay.
Wendy is here from Expo 2031.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. I wasn't sure if you were going to put the slide up, so excellent. So good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and City staff. I want to introduce myself and my team to you. I'm Wendy Meadley. I'm the CEO of Expo 2031 Minnesota, USA. My team is here, Shauna Woodbury. She is our Public Affairs and Global Horticulture Council Director. Vice President at SRF Consulting Group, who is our engineering firm, and also Vice President of their urban practice at SRF Consulting Group. And I brought them here tonight, so we'll have some Q&A afterwards, and I want my experts in the room. Understanding that this is an introduction to today. Oh, I click, right? There we go. There they are. So tonight, we'll provide an introduction to Expo 2031 and our interest in Lakeville becoming the host community. To be clear, this is a privately led and funded development looking to collaborate with a host city, staging Expo 2031 and a prosperous future living district. Our agenda includes our approved and licensed status, our Expo site vision, a high-level overview of benefits for Lakeville, our proposed Expo site, and why we're enthusiastic about pursuing this opportunity with Lakeville specifically. Then, of course, we'll answer some initial questions. So this is federally approved and officially licensed. Why is that important? It's important because these two approvals are the only approvals we need to be shovel-ready to do a project in the United States on behalf of the United States. To get here, we took 2 years and worked with a whole collection of these supporting agencies and entities through vetting and application approval processes from federal, state, regional, county, and industry. So you can see on the left, American Hort. They are the Industry Association for Horticulture, who said that the AIPH, the governing body, the international governing body, could have us be the candidate on behalf of the United States. We went to U.S. Commerce, and at the U.S. Commerce Department, we submitted an application. That application has been approved by this administration in partnership with the U.S. State Department, who had to also write a report and make sure that the State Department would partner with us in the future. The USDA was part of that process, as well as the U.S. Botanic Garden, and then the state of Minnesota assigned Tom Peterson, the Department of Agriculture commissioner, as our person. And then now that we've been approved, we are also partnering with both DEED and Explore Minnesota. Dakota County commissioners traveled the entire path with us, including the Secretariat delegation, and met with our international participants. And then Tony Schertler at Dakota County CDA has approved being our fiscal agent for any state and federal funding, which makes us an officially licensed expo, the first federally approved international horticultural expo in U.S. history. It will go from May to October, 6 months, hosted in Dakota County. That's what it's licensed to do. 4 million plus projected visitors. We will cap the tickets at that, so we know that no one wants to be flooded with a bunch of folks. So we want it to be a really successful regional tourism and business opportunity, and then we see the outcome being a future living district for the Expo host city, and looking at long-term growth. The United States has now put us from the the International Trade Association to the National Travel and Tourism Organization. So they've taken us from approved application into authorization, and you see across the bottom, we now are aligned with FIFA, the Olympics, the World Cup, and then us. And so now we represent the United States on that stage, and they're now queuing our national promotion of that. So you're wondering about our Expo site and our visitor experiences. Let's look at the site. This is our currently planned site vision. It has 2 components to it. It has an overall site for the Expo entity, the Expo moment itself, the 6 months, and it also has legacy options in it. We will customize this and build it to suit for the city and community that we host with. And so just want to walk through the site for a minute with you. In the upper left, think about it being 10 o'clock. You would walk into the site, and the first thing you would see would be the USA Pavilion. Once you've seen the USA Pavilion, that's on the tip of the Pollinator Lake, you can either take a counterclockwise walk around the Expo or a clockwise walk around. I'm going to take you counterclockwise, and I'm going to take you through the different zones. Each zone has a climate. It has a biodome. When you go to the north side, you see our up north forest overlook. I've got to slow down a minute here. We've got hospitality and retail put through the whole thing, and we've got a technology spine overlay so that when people come to the site, they actually are using their phone to customize and create their Expo experience. And then, of course, we have back-of-house operations. What you see on the west side of the site, is an Expo hall on the left, an amphitheater, a hotel, a secret garden wedding venue, hospitality and retail locations, and then on the right-hand side, we would replace that side of the Expo with a residential development. Mixed use, depending on what the site was, what made sense for the community. The technology spine would live on, and the legacy would be operated with an HOA. That gives you a quick view of the site. Now, what will people experience during the Expo? As I said, there are climate zones. So imagine that the United States has 13 USDA zones, and we've taken those zones and making them 5 experiential zones: arid, tropical, temperate, continental, and North Star. When you go in each of these zones, imagine you would go to Disney and you'd go into Harry Potter World. Instead, you'd be going to the arid zone, and you'd walk into where you have here. You can see this is a biodome experience. So theme park without the rides, but biodomes where you're transported to go to the desert and have that experience. Within each of the zones, you have different, these would be actual country pavilions, you have country gardens, and you have these circular, these right here, are all specialty pavilions that would be themed around horticulture, agriculture, Minnesota, energy. And then you can see that you would have international gardens in between, right? And of course, there would be programming competitions. That gives you a feel of the general visitor experience, at least at a first glance. What are the benefits to Lakeville? Well, we've aligned this with Lakeville's 2040 plan, and you can see that you're looking to have this high-quality development infrastructure efficiency. This does have that. It advances your planned growth with a signature employment and innovation node that converts into a long-term future living district. And we would support regional growth with a job trajectory that Lakeville has published and is looking for. So jobs would look like construction, operations, hospitality, and the various suppliers. There are 32 supplier categories that actually operate an expo of this nature. And then there's tax base. Of course, there's property value growth through the hotels, the mixed use, and commercial and industrial. There's tourism spending, of course, with regional visitor flow, local dining, retail amenities, and strengthening downtown activity. And of course, we would have to have some kind of a circulator or a shuttle or a electronic bus that would take people from the expo through the city into the different economic areas that Lakeville would deem to be important. So, what site? We're looking at the site. We'd like to pursue the site that is just directly southwest of 190th Street and Cedar. To acquire the site, we know we would need to be able to get the city's agreement to conduct an environmental study and talk to the landowners, and we do have a shovel-ready project ready for that. We've got full federal approval. We are the official license holder. We're the legal entity that can actually assign the land for parcel for Expo 2031. We're ready to secure the property for necessary environmental process and purchase. And we have spoken with Minnesota developers that are known and experienced that have an interest in developing the site with us. We would incur the cost for public utility extensions. We do know that there is no water and sewer currently on the site, so we would incur that, and we have that accounted for in our financial plan. And then we've got an environmental study and construction timeline, high level. We, of course, have a very detailed one as well, but for this initial look, this gives you an idea that this year we would really need to land on our site and do our environmental, and we do have our master planning in place, of course, with our engineering firm, and we, of course, would need to get our entitlements in place. Then in 2027 and 28, we'd look to do the engineering and infrastructure construction, and then peak construction would be 29 and 30. And then, and also during that time would also be all the planting. Of course, U.S. growers are a really important component of this. And then finally, of course, we would, after a winter, open, and hopefully it's not too chilly for folks, but we'd have financial preparation and opening. Afterwards, we would have a year of initial transformation to take this, disassemble the part of the site that would not be moving forward, and then we would transfer the site into a HOA and an actual legacy operating entity. So here's just a high level so that you understand what we're looking at for numbers. We're looking at a $971 million project. We have itemized $31 million for the land purchase and for the utility expansion as an earmark. We have earmarked $668 million for the site and construction and operating expenses at $120 million. So after our total disbursements, we have an ending cash balance of just under $152 million in our plan. Where the funding comes from, you see 55% of that. We've got sponsorships, official partners, investors, licensing, and other participation, and then 45% comes from operating sales. Why Lakeville? Well, I don't have to sell you guys on Lakeville, but I just want to let you know that we actually know that you've got these really lovely, large, contiguous development areas. We've identified one, but we have other ideas in Lakeville because we think that you would be an amazing place to host Expo, and we believe that your regional infrastructure access aligns and your sewer service expansion through Met Council and your approvals you have there also aligns, and that you have a growth-ready planning framework already in place. And so, and as we've written here, few metro communities combine these conditions, and I know you know that. It's why you're popular, and it's why you're a leading city in your county. So you have the readiness and land capacity for a project of this scale, and we really would love to be here in Lakeville and really build this future living district. So it's not about building the Expo. The Expo is a trigger and an amazing opportunity for Minnesota, but you can imagine that there is this future living district opportunity to imagine how people want to live in the future. And for residents here, it's not only a civic asset, but it's long-term employment. It's a great trigger for a mixed-use district, and it's got, of course, all those things we've just itemized: long-term task-based growth, employment expansion, commercial development, and infrastructure utilization. So I think it's you gain a legacy district and a permanent employment opportunity for Lakeville and a national visitor destination. Expo cities are known. You know Seattle, you know Knoxville, you know San Antonio. And so that's our initial overview. I know it's a bit of a water hose, but questions that you have, at least for us today and for our team?
Yeah, thanks. Comments, questions? I've got a bunch.
Who wants to start?
So I have a couple. Sure. First one's related to the site. So 195th does not currently get all the way to Cedar, so that's part of the infrastructure plan. But currently 195th is a stub, I believe, right? It doesn't go all the way to Cedar Avenue, so we'd have to.
Isn't it?
How much of 195th Street are we talking about?
It's a dirt road, isn't it?
I think with some of the things like that, we'll need to sit down and talk with your engineering department and figure out what some of those entitlements are and what the vision is. So I think we want to come in at this in an open mind and really understand what the long-term thought process is for that area and how that can work with Expo and understand how that future roadway network will go through the site. I think we absolutely want to plan and build out the parts that are visioned, for the city in the long-term use.
And maybe you know this, Justin. This has always kind of been of a struggle of a development area for us because of sewer and water. I mean, I'm worried this is going to be a very expensive piece of property that you're picking, I guess is my point, because the infrastructure costs are pretty high. Is that, there's not sewer and water that stubs here, right?
No, the planners know that it's not to the site yet. It will take some expense to get it to that site.
Okay. And then, do we remember what the proposed timing is for 35 and 50? Because I think about, so 35 is the main thoroughfare to get to Lakeville. Obviously, you can get here to Cedar, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. And so I'm concerned that if we've got pretty significant construction on 35, it's just gonna be hard to get to Lakeville. So I don't know if if you guys have had that conversation with them.
Yeah, it's going to be a 2-year project, and the latest estimate I heard is going to be a 29-30 construction project.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I think your colleague had something to say about that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff. We've been in contact with MnDOT Metro District. The district.
Because let me just say, we're not gonna be really happy if this delays our construction for 35 and 50. Okay, so go ahead.
I hear you loud and clear. But yeah, in conversations with both the district engineer, the area manager, as well as other staff at Metro, and they're willing to be flexible with us. They actually just reached out last week about project status, and so they're well aware that Expo is going to be coming to Minnesota, and how do they work with us? So
Okay. So, and this question is probably for you. Have the United States, have we hosted an Expo? Like, is there something to look back to and see how things went somewhere else?
There are actually, so specialized market city.
Okay.
And so Botanic Gardens or an arboretum.
Mm-hmm.
We have those. Spokane, San Antonio, and differing variations of success in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So long term, all of them, some of them were close to each other. And so an expo is typically something that gets created to create regional tourism, and we do have numbers around the tourism. Anywhere from 200 million to 500 million annually for whether it's the park in Spokane or Rivermont in San Antonio or right around where the Sun Sphere is in Knoxville.
So, when you think about the added amenities you mentioned on one of the slides, how does the decision tree go for that? Because I think there was amphitheater, hotel. How does that,
How does that work?
yeah, how does that work? Is it all because of fundraising or private investment? It's like it's a wish and a prayer?
Could you get to the mic?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you. Just so how we see that is we actually have all those different Expo legacy components have been modeled individually. So they won't be built if they're not funded individually and if they're not of desire to the host city. One of the things we thought of here is there are already hotels. So a hotel isn't something that's absolutely necessary or required, and if that isn't something that fits in what our partner city would want, that's something that could go away. There are a couple things that we absolutely need to do and why they got put in the mix. The secret wedding venue was put in because it's a really affordable and amazing way. People like to get married at expos, but it actually is a long-term asset that doesn't exist in this region. The amphitheater at 2,500 seats, there is actually a hole in the market for the economic development of that. There are higher and lower, and so we modeled it out, and in the Dakota County region, only 32 events would need to be at that, and there's more than that from an inventory standpoint. So each of those has their own model per se. What we absolutely have to be able to run the expo is we absolutely need to have the expo hall because we have to host a beginning and ending event, and we have to have 60 country leaders to be able to not be chilly and sitting in a blanket under a chair outside in May and September, right? So the other components that are on that side, none of those are required. So we can adapt and adjust those based on the city. But they do have long-term great value for the Expo. So it isn't everything's modular. The different specialty pavilions, if, for example, we were lighter on our raise, we can take one or two of those out, and that doesn't change the experience. So we've built in contingency throughout the development that wouldn't change either, not only the model of what people would experience or the risk.
What, so one of the numbers you said is 4 million visitors over 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the numbers that the other cities had?
So we're on par to that. Jim, do you remember those off the top of your head? Because he did all the modeling, and
Top of my head, the numbers are a little fuzzy, but we do have some modeling that shows that our average visitors today would kind of be right in the middle of what's most other cities experience. We're not expecting the same attendance that, Chicago got when they did the World's Fair back in the 1920s. But we are, looking at visitor attendance that would rival, Knoxville and Seattle and Spokane.
Yeah, it just seems like 20-some thousand people a day is a lot. Okay, because you're not open. I was just doing 180 days divided.
We expect 4 million unique visitors, but they attend more than one day when they 1.8 trips per visitor.
Well, just like the size of the household. Okay, other questions?
I first have to say that it's a very interesting concept where I feel honored to be in this conversation. And yet there's a lot of questions in my head about what's left, what does it take to get there. So I guess the first question for me is, for this team, are you full-time on this board? What's your background in leading an expo like this? How does this get started? If this didn't happen before, who came up with the idea to create this international or national expo?
So it's an interesting question. We didn't come up with the idea. I've been on the previous Expo efforts that were trying to come to Minnesota. So I believe that that Expo is supposed to be here because of all that Minnesota has to offer. It's a model for the United States. Expos bring together the greatest minds of the time, and I know that's a bit of a bunny trail. But in this moment in Minnesota needs a stage to say something new, say something about who we are and not what we're experiencing. So while the Expo effort here didn't come about because of the moment we're in, the moment we're in is actually what big corporate investors and folks are talking about now, because Expo uniquely puts us in a moment where we can stand on a stage and show all the great things that the companies in Minnesota have done in the past, present, and future for the globe. So why Minnesota? That's why Minnesota, and why an Expo. What I would say is I'm the leader of this. I brought together 24 original funders along with my own. We've now just been approved in November, and now we are moving into our official partner timeline. We have 4 folks developing funds right now, and we have our initial 3 official partners and other founding partners who have now leveled up to official partner status. So what I would tell you is it's almost like this thing that you're thinking, wow, it's so big, but it's really not that big if you think about it in pieces. And we didn't intend to build out an entire team in this moment. My vision was to say, let's take the biggest businesses in the region who already do this work, and instead of building out a team, let's bring those people in as investors and put their whole team to work. So SRF came in as an investor a year ago, and we have the entire SRF team. So Andy is their SVP and is on their board and represents their entire team. Jim represents their whole urban practice. So at any given time, that's actually our office. So if I'm you and you're thinking, how does this woman build this out? No, I don't build it out. I bring in best in breed players. So we've already brought in a company called TPN Events out of Seattle. You've heard of CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. They do a big portion of that. So that's actually our event experts. Okay, so we've got transportation and infrastructure, we've got events. Then BRC Imagination Arts, we're going to announce next week, is the lead of our USA Pavilion, which we're starting with. We know Expo is a big thing for people to think about. So we're starting with our USA Pavilion. Everybody understands what that is. And so we're starting with that with a team. We've got Shauna in as our executive director of that. And we've got BRC Imagination Arts that came out of Disney and Pixar, and they have designed an amazing, gorgeous USA Pavilion Expo for us. And then Travandi is our operating partner. Best in Breed, both of them did the Osaka Expo and are blessed by our country as well. And so I've brought in... Instead of bringing in suppliers, I've brought in those companies as investors to lift it off.
Gotcha.
And we're doing the USA Pavilion as our starter. We actually go globally with it on a week from tonight in Sydney, Australia. And we believe that momentum beyond the 20th of May with the International Airport, who is going to host World Bee Day with us, because, of course, our mascot is going to be a bee. You know, wouldn't be surprising. We believe those two moments publicly will help people understand and capture their imagination, alongside with our country standing up and putting us alongside FIFA and the Olympics, et cetera. And that just happened last week when we met with the National Travel and Tourism Office. So what might seem really big is going warp speed. Think about it, from November to... We're just out of February. Yeah. So I realize it seems really big. But you know, step the path.
Well, and having that background helps me understand the legitimacy of the group that's coming together to try to put this together. I think the next part is, for me, is trying to understand what is actually being built. And when you say biodome, I'm thinking Henry Dorley Zoo, desert aerodome.
I think of Pauly Shore.
House. Think about a big old greenhouse. And you're going to have plants because 2/3 of the plants to have a biodome for you to be able to experience.
And are those part of the legacy buildings that would be left, or are those being deconstructed at the end?
And then the others would go
So you move these buildings. They're constructed and then moved to other, because investors want to keep their building, or? Got it, okay.
they would be moved.
And then how does future housing work into this vision? Because I don't know what that looks like. Are we talking about round buildings? I mean, pods? I mean, that's what I was thinking of when you said futuristic buildings.
Nothing like that.
Or 3D printed buildings. That's what I was...
We will probably have some 3D printed buildings because we're talking to 3D printers of buildings, but it's not like that. We'd be working with typical residential developers here, and there would be amenities in the neighborhood that would be amenities people want. Community gardens, different kinds of traffic lights, et cetera, and we intend to run that like an HOA. So I don't know if you're familiar what Arden Hills has done relating to an HOA. There's a model that exists and some smart people who put that together already, and so that ends up making sure all the grounds are maintained and all of those kinds of things.
Gotcha. Well, and so that probably answers my question about why here. Not Lakeville, but this particular parcel, because when I saw the plan of an expo center, a hotel, I'm thinking closer to 35 sounds like it should be where this is located, both from a traffic impact on our residents, but also from the hub of activity.
Sure.
But the residential piece doesn't really fit in that equation.
So so we said we'd cap the tickets, right? But we're also doing a shuttle service. And so think about shuttle locations all over. So there isn't going to be an influx of traffic impacting the residents. It's a queued shuttle scenario, and Jim can walk you through that. But we can't imagine having everybody around town not be able to get to work on time and everything. That's not something that would fly here, right? So we have to curate it. And then our vision would be in Dakota County to have the various cities have maybe a morning, a lunchtime, a supper time, and end of day direct shuttle in the county in a friendly way to work that way.
So then the what if, in my opinion,
Yep.
is what if we don't get this ticket sales that you're anticipating?
Ticket sales everything is not inclusive of ticket sales. Ticket sales are upside.
So the
They're not in the model.
operating income?
Retail and licensing. So imagine Hello Kitty, Hort Barbie, Crayola crayons, all that. It's a huge market, and even the conservative version of it, we start selling years out, and even the conservative version of it accomplishes our number. When we model out the financials for licensing partnerships and all those kinds of things, there's 4 times the amount of sponsor assets than we have listed there for our top line.
Okay. I have one more question, Council. This was presented to Rosemount.
It was.
What kept that from happening in Rosemount?
I can't speak on behalf of Rosemount. I can tell you that we appreciate that. So Rosemount got involved early on. We initially had put out an RFI, and if you remember Al Singer was their real estate guy. He was who responded, and I'm specifying that because there was something out in the paper, and Dakota County has asked me to be very clear of how that all went. So he responded, and that's how we chose that piece of land. That piece of land, if you know what the piece of land is not in the core of where Rosemount was looking to develop. So in my opinion, based on the feedback we were given, the piece of land and we actually had initially, candidly, a 240-acre site with a big development. They felt that was too big. We came back with a smaller version, this right-sized 160-acre option, and they liked the pieces. They felt the land wasn't a fit. There could be other reasons. That's just not, I can't speak on their behalf. But what was communicated in our last meeting before we mutually parted, and it was very amicable and all of that, was that there were assets that they wanted, but they thought they maybe should be placed differently. For example, a hotel.
So who comes to something like this? Is it
Families,
groupies, or
all kinds of things. There's 2 components to it. There's the consumer portion, so that's the Expo experience, and then you saw the Expo hall. So businesses actually put a pavilion up, and then they have their annual meeting there or whatever. So there's the whole B2B that funds the backside of it, and B2C is the front consumer experience. And so everything from elderly people, couples, all that kind of thing. We've got 6 different personas of folks who travel, who are interested. People who go for culinary, people who go for green, or,
would it mostly be domestic people, or from obviously all over the world?
Our model accounts for 96% domestic, 4% international. I think it'll be higher than that, but we made it very conservative, and 80% is regional of our model. So could there be more from outside? I think there's going to be, but
how does staffing work? I mean, I'm thinking about this, like, if you think about the Dakota County Fair and its size, or,
Yes, it's different.
I mean, it takes a lot of people, and I think about all the volunteers it took just for the Super Bowl, and that was in the core of the city, and
Yep.
Super Bowl is a little cooler, maybe. No offense. Maybe to the right crowd, I guess, I don't know.
Are they here? No. So I was the co-chair of the cuisine committee for the Super Bowl. So there is a volunteer component to it. We actually, so there's a couple different parts of how you staff this. So there's a whole set of HORT people you need. So all the people who know how to do all the grounds. So we've partnered with 2 organizations for that. The American Public Garden Association, that they do all the big botanic gardens all over the country. And so the people from the top botanic gardens want to come here and be part of it. And then the Minnesota State Horticulture Society has 8,000 members, 8,000. And they become a huge force for the grounds themselves, because people will expect Disney-level pristine grounds throughout Expo. Beyond that, during the Legacy, we do have, and particularly without naming them publicly here, there are 2 major grower players that are in this county alone that would be likely candidates, that would be ongoing upkeepers and folks that would keep up the grounds, et cetera. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, and I have like 3 questions. But my first one is kind of related to that. I'm thinking, okay, May through October, we're talking Dakota County Fair, we're talking State Fair.
Yes.
And those are huge events, and, 2 weeks at the State Fair of, like the mayor said, volunteering and all that.
Yeah.
What impact do you think that would have on this would have on that?
Well, so before Charlie Zelli left the Met Council, he you got to have your little kitchen cabinet, right? So I called him and I said, oh my goodness, what are we going to do about the state fair? Because how am I going to get people to and from and all of that kind of thing? And he said, oh, don't just worry about the state fair. You have to worry about the 2 weeks after, because the guys make so much money during the fair, they go to their cabin. And I'm like, oh dear. So thinking through that, and I had met with Pete Storley and walked the fairgrounds and done all of that. Those are things that, believe it or not, there are groups that Charlie defined for me that actually travel the country and fill in the blanks, for transportation and other kinds of things. And so from a staffing perspective, there are 5 really big firms in the world that already staff for expos, and we're in a conversation with 2 of them that they would come. And one of the firms we brought, Travandi, already on for the USA Pavilion. They're one of them that does that, and they've come on as a investor partner. And the reason we brought them on is they see it as not bringing in a bunch of staff from somewhere else. They have a model to train people regionally, and that was really compelling, because I think there's a lot of folks who wouldn't mind having a job, during the time leading up to it. And then we've also got an agreement with the building and trades as well. So it's not something we don't have to be experts at everything. We've got to pull experts from a whole lot of different things. But the last 2 years, we'll scale up to about 19,000 people. So it's a very big number. The bigger number is we've got to bus them in from where they live and all that good stuff. So it's not a small undertaking, and we'll bring all the experts together that we need to make sure it happens.
So I've had the opportunity to see 2 of these former sites, Knoxville and San Antonio.
Okay.
And the impression I get is there's always something left behind.
Yes, there is.
A little bit about that, because we talk about the future housing and replacing some stuff with other, but there's some pretty serious infrastructure that gets left behind.
Depends on what there is, and that's why we would need a HOA. So we've actually had a conversation with 2 different foundations here in Minnesota, because we know we need to leave money behind and transition to a legacy operating entity, and that wouldn't be what we would be doing. It's not something we're traveling a path with folks, but we have them in place to be a foundation trusted here in Minnesota. That continues the funding, and then we see the entire future living district, which is the new piece, being an HOA.
And it's interesting because like what's left behind is an attraction because you want, you know, like we go visit this place and it's like, oh yeah, let's go see that. So what is it about this? Oh yeah, we got to go see that.
The USA Pavilion. So instead of, it wouldn't make sense, or at least it's our opinion, it wouldn't make sense to do a big needle or that kind of thing. It doesn't seem like it would fit. And so what we've imagined with our BRC Imagination Arts team is a USA Pavilion like never done before. We've seen the park. Do you want to explain it, Shauna, or do you want me to do it? Keep going? Okay. So you're aware that Minnesota is the home of the very first indoor mall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Excellent. So instead of having something that looks just like a pavilion that could be dated, et cetera, we imagine that the inspiration for our USA Pavilion is land, air, and water. Those are the three things that are actually take things to grow. And so we have a platform, and then we have three unique buildings that live on a platform. In the platform is offices and that, and the rest is somewhat, I mean, here's where we get to the Jetsons. So not the houses, but, you know, more beautiful glass. And our thought is that we have a 4-season indoor park that has different facilities in it, not a shopping mall, but I thought at least that gives you a feeling of it not being so much a museum or a building or whatever. It becomes not only a destination by nature of the fact that it was at the World's Fair, but really more of a destination for residents and regional people to convene and use all year long. So that's what we imagine is our legacy leave behind.
And then what would happen with the overlook tower you had on the map?
Well, I think that stays. It just depends on how fancy that gets, right? Does it look like Smokey the Bear, or does it? I don't know. You know, that's. What do you think? You want it to be cool? There. Let me just tell you. There was a thing.
Cool.
There. You want it to be cool?
Of course.
Okay. So the coolest thing I saw that you know, they always tell me, stop when you can't have that. I wanted redwood trees. They're like, you know what it would take? They don't live outside. You got to put glass around them. And so they're like, no, you can't have redwood trees. But there is, Dubai had a needle. Not huge, but it was big enough. I bet you it's bigger than here to there, all the way around the needle that had trees and little tables and everything. So you could go up and, you know, have a little reception up and come down. That would be cool if we did
get you
something.
pine trees, I'm sure. Which leads me to my third question. And I'm just looking at the map because the sites that I'm familiar with that I've seen from the past aren't directly in residential. There's some residential that's really close here. Mm-hmm. And we're talking tens of thousands of people a day for 6 months, plus people coming to visit this site for years after.
Yep. And what does that feel like and look like?
What does that feel like? What do we tell these folks that live adjacent to this that your lives are going to be significantly disrupted?
Enter Jim.
Yeah, and so I'm going to try to go back to one of these slides here. You can see in this concept that we are showing a fairly significant buffer kind of around the site to create that separation from the adjacent property owners to where the core activity is. And obviously this is what it shows for the Expo event, and once that starts to transform into that legacy use, there's even more things that we can do from buffering depending on the context of what we're looking for that long-term use.
And none of this is like etched in stone right now, so it's all negotiable in terms of where things would go. All right, thanks.
So, similar to neighbors, our friends in Farmington have had some very colorful discussions about land use lately. And this gets pretty close to that. Have you had conversations with Farmington, and what has that been like?
We have. We actually met with their city council and that. And their development. So that we had very positive conversations with them. One of the things we talked to them was for a farm field site. So it's public, it's out there. So we had talked to them about having a expos can have, horticulture expos can have official programs. And so the conversation, we didn't have a conversation about them hosting Expo in its entirety. It's not sized for where their streets are and that kind of thing. But we did talk to them about having a 20-acre farm field demonstration site. And that was interesting. And so that is something that is sitting out there. Now that we've looked at this site, candidly, we would probably just partner that up and put that with this at this point in time, but we did have very favorable meetings there.
And
So.
What is like the marketing plan for get people to?
It's actually really interesting because, let me ask you a question, Luke. Do you think people will be Googling in 2031?
Who knows?
Right. That's the point, right? And so we don't know if they're going to be Chat GPT TPN events out of Seattle, we're studying that very thing. How do you really get to people? What we do know is, we do know people will be searching and wanting custom experiences, and we do know how through the National Travel and Trade Organization and through Brand USA, who markets the USA, that we'll have that national platform behind and a whole budget behind for us. And we do have a marketing plan of our gateway strategy. So our gateway strategy takes shopping malls all over the country and has events there. And so I think it's going to feel more like event-driven, in real life. School programs are huge. So I think it's going to feel very in real life and real localized in targeted markets of people that want to travel and do the different kinds of persona activities we want to do. But we have a really elaborate, we're really studying the whole tech piece.
And then does that marketing continue after this is done and we have this site that we want people to come and visit, and you guys are, if somebody lands somewhere in the North Metro,
Well, so, okay. So is this out online? Okay. Is it recorded forever? Okay. Well, so so we've had a conversation with an entity to imagine a really unique gateway and have a very first pavilion that would live somewhere that would be in a really big gateway place that a lot of people would come into. So I think there's a number of different ways we can have ongoing. And then also just, I know it seems really basic, but it becomes a Wikipedia page and you become part of U.S. history. I mean, the Seattle Needle, they don't market, and that makes billions of dollars. And by the way, the Needle, the operating entity, the US, didn't decide to do it, so an outside developer did it and made all the money. So, and so we might build what happens on the land, but other developers and all that, many people will benefit. Many other businesses will benefit as well, but yeah.
So
There becomes a whole cottage industry around it.
for Justin and Tina, not to put you on the spot, what's the comp plan and land use around the other side of Cedar, and because I'm just wondering, like, how does this play into what we are? Obviously, I was zone single family right now, or rural ag or something.
Yeah, it's all residential. It's not currently in the MUSA.
Okay, was it like 20, 30?
It's in the expansion area. Not sure if it's an A or B. It's probably in B, because sewer's on the other side of Cedar, so we'd have to do some amendments.
So what are next steps?
what we'd really like to do is we'd like to do an environmental study. It's a requirement of a project this size, and so that would be what we'd be asking. That's our ask.
Okay.
Of course, at our expense.
We've got all of our directors here. I really wanted to ask, from your perspectives, finance, utilities, police, parks, development, what are the considerations that you're thinking about with something like this? I mean, as I'm listening to this, you're minimizing the scale. I mean, maybe you're just used to these kind of scales of projects, but to me, this is a big thing. And so I'm curious from a director's standpoint, what are you thinking about with a project like this that we should be considering?
I think the first off is just, are they able to secure the property? Are they able to secure the easements to get the sewer and water across Cedar Avenue to this property? Because it would have to go in a little bit different configuration than our current staging plans and our master plans for sewer and water. Those are probably, I think, the biggest initial hurdles, because without that, there's no site. I think there's a lot of other things that come to mind after that. I think my biggest question is the permanency, what that housing area is and how that meets our future comp plans, knowing we're going into our 2050 update, how that gets included, that kind of consideration, any other permanent buildings and what future use they could be and benefit to the community. And then, I don't know, I'm sure these guys have a lot more other ideas.
I don't know about ideas, but from a public safety standpoint, sure. Questions, concerns, traffic, which you addressed a little bit, certainly shuttling. Looking at 40,000+ people a day, I don't see how that couldn't disrupt our normal traffic flow, but I'm sure there's certainly opportunities there for discussion, and then just securing the property for that long of time frame. We have certainly our citywide celebration each summer, which is probably short of 100,000 people over 3 big days. Just the scale and scope of that would be beyond the Lakeville Police Department. We'd certainly need help with that. But just looking at those challenges that will come with staffing, something like that from a public safety standpoint.
Sure. So as part of the federal government approval, we do receive Homeland Security and extra security. So that would get framed out and partnered. And then, of course, Expo, we do have in our planning that we would need to support additional resources, of course. So.
I'll just add, I think from a parks perspective, I think it's a question of what does carry over, what would become
it's going to be yours. I mean, just by default. It's not like Paul's going to all of a sudden be a gardener.
Right. So, when we're going through our planning process now, we talked about it at the last meeting for the next 10-year parks plan. But I think it's ultimately what does or could this be that is different than what we have, that adds a long-term improvement for Lakeville's residents, because I think at the end of the day that's the big concern for us. And then on top of that, this is a large site. So what does ongoing maintenance look like? What are those longer-term expenses that we would have to try to figure out how to absorb? So.
It would be, if we do the HOA model, it would be absorbed it's a contained site. It'd be run like an HOA, so that's not a piece that, there's probably adjacent, but that's not I'm sure there's a governance component there for sure. But but I think it'd be great if you guys would define elements that you would want in it. You guys already have the start of pollinator here, and you have all your amenities. If there were things that you wanted built in it, that would be amazing.
I mean, I don't know if anybody else knows the way. I mean, my perspective is I'm interested, I'm intrigued. There's a million questions to be answered and discussed. I don't want you guys to get down a path of, going through site, all that kind of stuff. And then you come back to us and your vision and ours is completely different. That's a great question. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Okay.
I'm just trying to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, so, and I'm being candid with you, we're open to aligning with what Lakeville would want for a vision. So if there's an opportunity to even imagine what that would be, I don't know what that path would look like, but we're open to that.
But does that work on your timeline? I mean, this seems like you need some decisions fairly quick to get the infrastructure set in place.
Technically, we need to control the land in our timeline by Q1 of next year.
Okay.
So, to stay on track with inviting the countries and everything, that's the real timeline. So it's not, I mean, that feels like there's enough room there to at least have a decent discussion and travel a reasonable path. And whether it's this piece of land, there are other pieces of land in Lakeville that are interesting to us if it's, this isn't.
Yeah, what's the total acreage?
Are 160 usable.
The Expo grounds themselves have to be at least 150 acres, but there's, the shoulder and back of house maintenance facility. So really we're looking at about a 180 site. What we're looking at, what we highlighted earlier tonight was about 240. So it doesn't have to be quite that big, but it does still want to be a fairly large tract plan.
Yeah, I mean, I just think something along the 35 corridor, if you can make it work, makes a lot more sense for a lot of reasons. Getting people in and out, that's where the hotels are, a lot of restaurants. Cedar's tough. It's the reason why the Met Council pulled the plug on their buses, for instance, because it just makes things really difficult there. I'm not a no. I mean, I think we need to have more conversation. I don't know if it makes sense to have Mr. Miller follow up with you guys maybe the next couple of days, and we can kind of, I don't know if that makes sense from a council perspective.
Yeah, I mean,
if you guys can't secure the land, then, I'm spending too much time thinking about it.
Sure.
But if you can, then we can have more conversation.
Like I stated at the beginning, to me, this particular site is odd. It's not quite close enough to our commercial hubs in my mind to make a lot of sense. And it's, in terms of assets that I think we want as a council, a community center is certainly something that we are looking for. That is an asset that if it was a part of this project is intriguing.
Yep.
It's just a matter of, does that actually make sense there long-term? And so in terms of the tourism and the impact to Lakeville, I'm a little of two minds on what that true impact will be. I think it's exciting to get Lakeville on the map. But, is that worth the other considerations in terms of potential traffic and whatnot? So I don't know. There's only really one element that I'm really excited about, and that's that potential community center long-term. I don't know. It's tough for me to, if you're not open to other locations in the city, I don't know that it's necessarily something that's viable.
Those for us, but
Yeah, I think we're interested in looking at other locations as well. It's just the size that we're looking for that continuous piece is a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. Well, and we have other things ruminating with other land in the city that might open up opportunities on 70, which is where I think this probably fits better overall. But those are future conversations too. That hasn't been finalized with our annexation agreement with the township yet. So. Mm-hmm.
If I could, I think one of the considerations is this really has a lot of opportunities to kind of build the suit. What we showed in terms of a concept is very flexible, and to the point of a future community center, I think that's something that the exhibition hall could transition into. I think one of the requests really is to engage with staff a little bit more to kind of flush some of those things out, and whether it's this site, a future site, or additional sites that you may know of. We just kind of came to this one as we were surveying the map and looking at what's out there. It's a single landowner, which was appealing, of course, rather than multiple landowners, but we're open to that. I think with the planning process coming in the next year or so with the city, it does give it an opportune time to kind of plan around this as well, and really to bring the city in as a partner to say, what do you want it to be, both during the Expo itself, and then what does that future legacy look like? About half that site, 2/3 of that site would be redeveloped to whatever you chose it to be. So there's a lot of open opportunities there, and as Wendy mentioned, infrastructure costs would be, initially bore by the Expo. So just thought I'd offer that for your consideration.
Yeah. Well, let's do that. Let's have you guys and staff kind of talk over the next couple weeks, and then we can try to regroup and figure out what's next. So appreciate you guys coming in. Any last questions from council? Thank you guys for making the trip down. Thank you all. Yep, I appreciate it. Do you guys want to take a 5-minute break before we do board appointments?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's do that.
that responsibility, huh? Which we've always been recorded.
Wants to make sure we're still on camera, right?
We are, yeah.
No, that's fine.
I'm not a micromanager.
Before we move on to the next piece, just a lot of times in a typical work session, we'd be able to have a little bit of our own kind of internal discussion. I mean, yeah, about the last issue.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't really get a read on folks. Are people interested in moving this forward?
I'm not, but that's why I kept my mouth shut. I let you guys decide what you're gonna do. Yeah, I think it's a ridiculous area.
It's a really challenging site.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the site's challenging. I think, I guess part of it is just wrapping my head around it, the numbers and the impact on our community. Because there is part that remains, and drawing people, I think the benefit would be, and you said it, Josh, was, oh, you end up with this big, cool kind of community center thing. That would be really neat. And the question then becomes, is what you would go through worth?
I just think the freeway and south is a better idea than sitting right in the middle of our future development.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of stuff that can go in there, and this is gonna just take up way too much space.
Stuff around there. I do think we can plan it well to have the amenities idea, Expo Hall, all that kind of stuff. I mean, how many times do people say, well, it's not a community center, it's indoor space? So if that's really an indoor park and it's described,
That would be
makes
cool.
ton of sense.
Yeah.
This is just a really challenging parcel.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
Well, and I just struggle to get I mean, I asked that question about who attends this, because $1 billion is a lot of money. Just, I'm struggling to.
Oh, it's a piece of
Did you
cake.
raise? You had a word that at some point I thought made sense to me, and so I struggle to get.
A lot less than trillion, so, I mean, you know.
I mean, in World's Fair, that's like where they invented the ice cream cone in 1902 or whatever, but you just don't. So I'm struggling with some of that too, and I mean, also this is the type of thing that would need a lot of socialization within the community, just because people are already perturbed about the pace of growth. Now you're saying 40,000 people a day.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's
for cultural lovers.
The freeway is a lot better in the fact that you don't have them traveling right through the middle of town.
I mean, if it would accelerate some of our highway projects, or I mean, there is some other things there, having it as a state significant national project. But I also just, from a brand perspective, I don't know that I don't, other than Bachman's, I guess I'm not sure what I see as Lakeville's connection to horticulture.
Yeah. And,
I'm just going to say, I'm in the same boat. If it's this current parcel, I don't think we should be moving forward at all with environmental studies here. I don't think it's the spot. I'd be interested if there's something south and west that makes more sense for us and them, but I just don't know if that works on their timeline.
And all of those annexations are in Dakota County, right? The ones that we were talking about with Eureka? Yes. Why did I think I had Scott County in my head for some reason?
Well, because you're getting closer and closer to the line.
I think
All right, well, we're back to your other question. I'm fine with it if you want to do that.
Do what?
if you want me to
hadn't thought about that.
Oh, sorry, Jim.
As a course, for this cycle or for all future?
Well, see how it goes, I guess.
I mean, already it's a different process, so, we just evaluate the whole process then before next year, if that's what he wants to do.
I will say, part of it for this is, the reason I thought of this, we have a ton of people for planning. Okay?
Always.
As I go through, there's probably a couple alternates and others on other committees that I can't really find anybody good for based on what they applied. There are some people I think who apply for planning may be interested in sliding into some of these other areas where I can have a conversation and say, look, we're kind of putting a master list together here. I think you'd be a good asset to, give opinions about the city, for instance, but, it might not fit in planning, because I think we got, 3 full people, 2 alternates, and what do we have, 10 applications or something?
Yeah. So like with your proposal, I think there's 2 ways to approach that. One way is the mayor creates a slate and we either approve or disapprove it, or the mayor creates a slate and we discuss that slate, because I don't know if we're going to be too far off on much of anything. So, I mean, as a point of starting, it might be a good way to do that.
When do we have to have this done? Just by the end of the month?
We gotta have a repeat.
The terms start on April 1st, so you would need to approve this at your next meeting.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
Yeah, we have basically.
That's why I just thought 1 year, if the mayor thinks this is a way to try it, we're already trying something different. Keep going through the process and see what it does, what happens.
It does have a higher salary, so it seems like it's part of that.
I mean, I trust your judgment. I do think I would be remiss if I didn't at least have an opportunity to say a couple things about observations from
You
the
did, and you
interviews.
wrote them in here.
I did, for all the ones that submitted videos. I did, when I was going through, there were a couple folks that did not submit a video. I personally felt that those that didn't submit one shouldn't be considered for reappointment or appointment, because it seemed like a fairly clear process. Everyone had that opportunity, with the exception of one. I think one came in after the video deadline, and so I don't think should be evaluated in the same way. But to your point, there were some folks that applied in the Planning Commission that I think might be great for Parks and Rec. And what else? Otherwise, I will say I put my scores and comments into the video process, and so as long as those are considerations as in appointments, I'm happy to go out about it that way.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, I mean, like I say, it isn't going to be too much different. I do think there are some people that would do better, and what I like about the video thing is you have the opportunity to look at the video and see other people's comments and thoughts and take that in. So I'm willing to give it a try.
What we're gonna do? I don't know if we have to vote on it. We just get to decide. All right.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I can come up with a slate in the next day or so.
Okay.
And then do you guys want to give feedback on that
Sure.
slate before the next meeting?
So just procedurally, if you want to send that to me,
Yep.
then I can send it out to all of you. And if you have comments, funnel those back through me.
Okay. And you look at the comments that are on the,
I have access.
yeah. Okay. I didn't write anything on there. I thought Joshua just covered it, so. When was I supposed to do? Ditto? No.
The only other thing I'll say too is that, I mean, I always appreciate everyone that applies regardless.
Oh, absolutely.
You know. These are important commissions, so I don't want anyone to feel slighted by not having full-out discussion. And at the same time, there are a couple of things that I value too, and that's new perspectives on certain commissions that may not have, may have had multiple years of the same folks on it.
Yeah.
And I also think that there were some really good points in the applications made about going into the next comp plan and having experience on those
Exactly.
commissions as well. So in some cases, I think it's helpful to have the new perspectives, and in other cases, I think it's helpful to have the experience continue on those boards. So, yeah, I think I look forward to looking at what the initial slate is.
And I do want to say, I liked the video. That was a great way to just be relaxed, listen, really hear people, and hear their answers.
I think there was some negative feedback from some of the candidates, but I agree.
Yeah, I had one tell me, he goes, I didn't think I was going to do this on Ash Wednesday with ashes on my face. I will say, part of the reason why I was comfortable proposing this is because the five of us have done this together a couple of times. So I feel like we're all kind of, we end up 97% of the time we all end up in the same
spot, yeah. I guess that's why I thought we usually agree.
Okay, well, let's do that. With that, then I'll take a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Oh, our next meeting is March 16th.